Saw her 3 days ago. She was well. Mrs. Clement whispered. More than well. She was full of questions. About Mrs. Vane. Remember? The Reverend said nothing. His hand trembled on the page. By noon, the news spread across street. Mary Mead. At Gossington Hall, Dolly Bantry clutched the telephone. Jane? Gone? She gasped. Mrs. Price Ridley's voice came sharp through the line. At her age, these things happen. You must have noticed her failing. Failing? Dolly snapped. She had the constitution of a horse, and twice the sense. Don't say such things. She hung up. Her hand shook. Her eyes filled. She sat in the morning room and wept. Not the polite tears of a hostess, but heavy, aching sobs. Jane had been more than a neighbour. She had been a friend. Across the green, shutters closed at the cottage. A black ribbon fluttered on the door. At the police station, Constable Lake held up the Gazette. Thought you should see this, sir. Inspector Slack frowned. He read the notice twice. His jaw tightened. Marple. Gone sudden-like. Lake shifted uneasily. Dr. Haydock's handling arrangements. Body with him now. Slack grunted. We'll pay respects when the time is right. And Lake keep this quiet. No circus. Yet Slack's mind worked. He remembered her last words. Questions about Mrs. Vane. Too many questions. The timing was remarkable. Perhaps too remarkable. At the doctor's surgery, Haydock paused by his car. He stared at the timing. Nupper, blinds of the cottage. To others, he looked respectful. In truth, he was measuring, watching, waiting, because 3 days earlier, Miss Marple had fainted in his surgery. Not illness. Excitement. She had whispered, Doctor, I know who killed Honoria Vane. She outlined it all. The details, the trap, the method. It was no accident. It was murder. But proof was another matter. She had said quietly, People grow careless when they think danger is gone, when they believe I am no longer watching. So the plan was born, her death announced. The cottage sealed, the village to mourn. And in that morning, the guilty would breathe too easily, move too quickly, reveal themselves. Now, behind the blinds, she sat upright, alive. Her needles clicked in steady rhythm. The village believed her gone, but her eyes were sharper than ever. Church bells tolled across the green. Their sound rolled like a summons. She smiled faintly. Tomorrow, she murmured, someone will betray themselves. A knock echoed at her door. Slow, deliberate. Dolly Bantry couldn't rest. She sat at the window, eyes fixed on the cottage. Across the green, blind stayed drawn. The black ribbon hung still. Too still. She whispered, Something is wrong. Jane would never leave her house so lifeless. The morning dragged. Dolly paced the room. She returned to the window again and again. Habit made her reach for opera glasses. She raised them, ashamed yet curious. She focused on the sitting-room chair. Jane's knitting lay across it, but not right. Dolly narrowed her eyes. The needles were parallel. That was wrong. Jane always crossed them before leaving her work. Always. Dolly's voice cracked in the empty room. She would never leave them like that. Her gaze shifted. The postman walked past, shoulders stiff. He slid letters through the box as if the door might open and swallow him. Mrs. Weatherby crossed twice, eyes glued to the blinds. The village watched, but no one dared speak aloud what gnawed at them. Dolly's heart tightened. She whispered, Jane, if you can hear me, give me a sign. But the cottage stayed silent. By mid-morning, the undertaker appeared, Mr. Penry. Black coat, top hat, solemn face. He reached the gate. He hesitated. Dolly held her breath. He didn't knock. He didn't ring. Instead, he glanced around, then slipped to the back of the cottage. Dolly pressed closer to the glass. Minutes passed. 10, perhaps more. Her pulse quickened. Finally, he emerged. But he did not look dignified. He looked unsettled, nervous. He hurried away, back toward the church lane. Dolly whispered, Strange, very strange. Her suspicion grew. She thought of the knitting, the ribbon, the undertaker. None of it fitted. By afternoon, she couldn't stay still. She stepped into her coat, crossed the green, and stopped by the gate. The ribbon caught her eye. Black silk. Proper width, but tied too neatly. Flat knot. Military precision. Not a village bow. Her stomach knotted. She leaned closer. She whispered, "This isn't right. Jane, what are they hiding?" Footsteps crunched on the gravel path. She turned. Inspector Slack approached. His face was somber, but his eyes sharp. "Lady Bantry," he said, touching his cap. She nodded stiffly. "Inspector, tell me the truth. Is she truly gone?" Slack cleared his throat. "Arrangements are handled by Dr. Haydock. For now, the body remains with him. Viewing will not be permitted yet." Dolly's hands shook. "I must see her, just for a moment. I must say goodbye." Slack's expression hardened. "Not possible, Lady Bantry. Medical reasons." "Medical reasons?" He didn't elaborate. "Dr. Haydock insists. We'll inform you when the time is right." Dolly's voice trembled. "So she is really gone. No mistake." Slack hesitated. His eyes flickered, unreadable. "No mistake," he said finally. He walked away. Dolly remained at the gate, staring at the ribbon. Her heart beat fast. Her eyes fell again on the cottage windows. Behind one blind, just for a second, she thought she saw movement. A shadow. She whispered, "Jane?" The shadow vanished instantly, leaving the window blank. At dawn, the wreath appeared. No one saw who placed it, but there it was. Mrs. Clement found it first. She stopped at the gate. Her eyes widened. White lilies. Fresh. Perfect. Expensive. Too perfect. Dew still clung to the petals. A card hung from the ribbon. She bent closer. Her lips moved as she read, "To Miss Marple, with deepest respect." Her hand shook. She whispered, "Marple?" She read it again. Still wrong. Jane Marple, not Marple. 50 years in the village. Everyone knew her name. She hurried back to the vicarage. "Leonard," she gasped. "There's a wreath at Jane's gate, but the card—" He frowned. "What of it?" She held out the words in her memory. They wrote Marple, not Marple, and the ink looked altered. The Reverend folded his arms. Curious. Very curious indeed. By mid-morning the whole village buzzed. Dolly Bantry crossed the green to see for herself. Inspector Slack stood at the gate already, notebook in hand. "Morning, Lady Bantry," he said without looking up. She nodded, eyes fixed on the wreath. "It's wrong," she said. Slack raised a brow. "Wrong how?" "The name. The ink. Look closely." He bent. His eyes narrowed. 2 inks, 2 pens, 2 hands. The words with deepest respect in blue. But the name, Miss Marple, in black. And the black ink bled, as if written over something older. Slack muttered. Someone corrected this. Clumsily. Wrote Marple first, then changed it. Dolly's voice was sharp. Why not use a new card? Any florist would provide one. Slack didn't answer. His jaw tightened. He tapped his pencil on the notebook. Later, at Benham Bloom's, the florist himself explained. Telephone order. Come. Late. After closing, a man's voice, muffled, said lilies, white, perfect circle, cost no object. Slack asked, "And the message?" The florist frowned. He dictated it. "To Miss Marple, with deepest respect, I wrote it exactly." Dolly leaned in. "But the card reads Marple." The florist scratched his head. "Odd that. I wrote Marple, I'm certain. But by morning it looked changed. The letters R and P had shifted, almost like someone tampered with it." Slack pressed. "The call where from?" The florist nodded slowly. "Public phone box, I'd wager. Echo on the line. Heard cars passing. Not from a home." Slack and Dolly left, thoughtful. They drove through nearby lanes. 3 telephone boxes within reach. One by the station, one in Much Benham's Green, and one, lonely, by the road near Vane House. Slack stopped there. He pushed open the door. The shelf beneath the phone was dusty, but not entirely. Tiny grains of white pollen clung to the wood. The same pollen as on the wreath. Dolly leaned closer. Her eyes caught something darker, a smear of tar, faint, greasy. Slack nodded grimly. Same as the ribbon on Marple's door. Whoever placed that wreath used this phone. Dolly's voice was low. And whoever they are, they don't even know her name. Slack closed his notebook. Or worse, Lady Bantry. They know it too well. The cottage was dark. The blind stayed drawn. The ribbon fluttered faintly. But inside, Jane Marple sat upright. Alive. Alert. Waiting. Her knitting needles clicked softly. Steady. Patient. Purposeful. Dr. Haydock sat across from her, medical bag at his feet. His forehead glistened. "Jane," he whispered. "The whole village believes you gone." She nodded once. "Good. That is what we need." He sighed. "Dolly Bantry begged to see you. I had to refuse her." She was in tears. Jane's eyes softened. "Poor Dolly, but this play must be acted through. One slip and all is lost." Haydock leaned forward. "Your plan unnerves me. A false death? A forged notice? Even Slack suspects something unusual." Her needles paused. Then she spoke slowly. 3 days ago, I saw it clearly. Honoria Vane was murdered. Her heater tampered with. Soap and wool used to block the vent. Deliberate. Calculated. She lowered her voice. And someone in this village fears I saw too much. Haydock's shoulders slumped. "You think your own life at risk?" Jane gave a faint smile. "My life has always been at risk, Doctor. Truth is never safe." Her eyes grew sharper. "But if they believe me dead, they will relax. They will move freely. They will reveal themselves." Haydock rubbed his hands. "The undertaker has been seen near your cottage, but Penry swears he was in Benham at the time. Which means someone played a part." Jane finished. "A disguise. An impersonation. And why? To make my death look official. To silence questions." She placed her knitting on her lap. "They've tied a ribbon with a sailor's knot, ordered lilies from a public box, written my name wrong on the card. Each detail is clumsy. Each detail betrays haste." Haydock frowned. "But the villagers don't see these things." Jane looked at him steadily. "Dolly does. Dolly has learned from me." She noticed the knitting. She noticed the ribbon. She is already suspicious. Haydock muttered. "If she presses too far, she may put herself in danger." Jane leaned back. "That is why we must act quickly. Slack must be drawn in. Quietly. Without alerting the guilty." Haydock shook his head. "He despises your methods." A spark of amusement flickered in her eyes, and yet he follows them every time. The clock ticked between them. Outside, the village carried on in mourning. Inside, Marple sharpened her trap. She whispered, "Guilt is a restless thing. It pushes the guilty to act when they think no one sees." Her hand hovered over her notebook. She wrote a single line. "Watch who moves too soon." Haydock rose, lifting his bag. "I must face them. If I linger, they'll question me." Marple nodded. "Go. And remember, every sigh, every glance, every hasty word, they all matter." He left through the back door. The cottage fell silent again. Her needles clicked once more. Then 3 sharp knocks echoed at the front. Not timid, not neighborly. Firm, slow, deliberate. Jane set her knitting aside. "They've come already," she whispered. The Bluebird tea-room buzzed. Every table filled. Cups clinked. Voices dropped low. News of Miss Marple's death had spread fast. Now, everyone wanted to talk about it. Mrs. Clement sat by the window, tea untouched. Her spoon turned round and round. Across from her, Dolly Bantry tore a scone into crumbs. She muttered, "I cannot stop thinking of her. She was too lively, too sharp. Only days ago she was asking questions." Mrs. Clement leaned closer. "She spoke to me of Mrs. Vane, said the sitting room was too neat. Said the clock was wound when it should not have been. She was troubled. Dolly's head snapped up. Troubled how? The basket was moved, from left to right, Jane remembered. A left-handed woman keeps it close, but it was shifted. Wrong side. Dolly pressed her lips. Jane noticed everything. Always. If she thought something odd, then it was. At the next table, 2 villagers lowered their voices. Peaceful, they said. But was it? Dr. Haydock's handling the body. No one's allowed to see. Strange, isn't it? The murmur carried. The air thickened with rumour. Inspector Slack entered quietly. He doffed his cap. "Ladies," he said. He slid into their table. "I'd like to hear again about the ribbon, Lady Bantry." Dolly straightened. It was tied too neatly. Not a village bow. Flat. Precise. Almost military. Slack nodded slowly. "I examined it, myself this morning. It's a reef knot. Perfect symmetry. Only trained hands tie like that. Sailors. Soldiers. Not housewives." Mrs. Clement frowned. "Is that important?" Slack tapped his notebook. "Important enough. Reef knots don't appear on mourning ribbons by chance." He lowered his voice. "Someone wanted to send a message, or cover their tracks. Either way, it doesn't sit right." Dolly leaned forward. "Then you don't believe it either. You don't believe she died of illness." Slack's face stayed blank. "I believe only what the facts show. And right now, the facts are odd." The doorbell jingled. Every head turned. Miss Beatrice Pike stepped inside. She paused, scanning tables nervously. Her hands clutched her handbag tight. Dolly's eyes narrowed. She noticed the cuts across Pike's fingers. Fresh. Rough. Not the hands of a companion doing light housework. "Miss Pike," Dolly called, her voice sharp but polite. "Do join us." Pike hesitated, then slid into the empty chair. "I hope I am not intruding." "Not at all," Dolly said. "We were just speaking of Jane." Pike's eyes lowered. "Such a loss. She visited me often, asked endless questions about Mrs. Vane, about the heater, about the night she died." Mrs. Clement leaned in. "And what did you tell her?" Pike's teacup rattled on the saucer. "That it was a dreadful accident. The vent must have been blocked. No one's fault." Slack scribbled notes, his eyes never leaving her face. Pike looked down at her hands. The faint soot still under her nails caught Dolly's eye. Dolly spoke quietly. "You've been busy, Miss Pike." Pike forced a smile. "Papers. Burning papers. The estate left such clutter." Slack's pencil froze. "Burning papers?" Pike's lips trembled. "Yes. Only old bills. Nothing of value." Dolly's voice cut through the tea room. "Or something you did not want Jane to see." Inspector Slack pushed his cup aside. His eyes locked on Pike. "Tell me more about these papers." Pike swallowed. "Estate matters. Receipts. Letters. Useless clutter." Dolly leaned forward. "Burned in the kitchen range?" "Yes," Pike whispered. The fire was hot, but some ink clung stubbornly. Slack wrote quickly. "You burned them yesterday?" She nodded. "In the afternoon." Dolly noticed her hands again. Red cuts, black smudges, nails rimmed with soot. "You've been working hard," Dolly said evenly. Pike shifted uneasily. "Someone had to put the house in order. Giles cannot manage everything." Slack looked up. "Where is Mr. Vane now?" "At home," she said. He wished to avoid gossip. Dolly's tone sharpened. "He seems to avoid much." Before Pike could answer, the tea-room door opened. Giles Vane entered. His face brightened at the sight of Pike. "There you are," he said quickly. "I've been looking everywhere." He turned to the table, trying for charm. "Ladies, Inspector. Shocking business about Miss Marple, isn't it?" His smile faltered when no one returned it. Slack's gaze was steady. "Your aunt's death. You still accept the coroner's verdict?" "Of course," Giles said briskly. "Tragic accident. Nothing more." Dolly spoke coldly. Jane thought otherwise. She was certain. Giles forced a laugh. Jane saw mysteries in teacups, but she was wrong this time, and sadly, she cannot argue now. Slack's pencil snapped mid-note. The sound cut through the silence. Pike tugged at Giles's sleeve. "We must go. The sweep is waiting. The chimney is blocked again." Slack leaned back, watching. "A sweep today?" "Yes," Giles said quickly. "Household nuisance. Nothing important." They left in haste. Chairs scraped. Cups rattled. The tea-room stirred with whispers. "Mrs." Clement leaned close to Dolly. "Did you hear her words? Blocked again?" She said it, plainly. Dolly's eyes widened. "Yes. The heater vent. The chimney. Always blocked at the right time. Always convenient." Slack rose. "Enough chatter. Time we looked for ourselves." They left together. The air outside felt heavier. The walk toward Vane House was silent. At the gate, Dolly paused. "Listen." The faint crackle of fire drifted from the chimney. Paper smoke. Acrid. Sharp. Slack's jaw tightened. "They're burning more, covering tracks." He strode forward. The kitchen door stood open. Inside, heat poured from the range. The sweep was nowhere in sight. But the grate glowed. Blackened fragments of paper clung to the iron. Dolly bent, plucking a half-charred scrap. The ink was faint but clear enough. A receipt. Her lips moved as she read. "Payment received. Portable heater. Model 9 amperes." Slack's eyes narrowed. The very heater that killed Mrs. Vane. On the table, metal parts lay scattered. The heater dismantled. Screws, pipes, collars. Residue clung to them. Soap, wool, ash. Dolly whispered. Jane was right. Slack didn't answer. He touched the pieces carefully, his hand steady. Then he spoke. "This is no accident. This is deliberate." The back door slammed. Footsteps rushed into the yard. Pike's voice shrieked. "Giles, hurry!" Slack spun toward the noise. "They're running. Now we know why." Dolly Bantry swore she had seen him. Black coat, tall hat, grim face. "Mr. Penry, the undertaker," she told Slack firmly. He walked to Jane's gate, then around the back. "I saw it clearly." Slack rubbed his chin. "And you're certain?" "Certain as the sunrise," Dolly snapped. "I have known that man 20 years. I would not mistake him." Slack nodded. "Then let's hear his side." They walked to the undertaker's establishment. Dark wood door, brass nameplate, neat curtains. "Mr. Penry rose from behind his desk. "Inspector." "Lady Bantry. You come about Miss Marple, I presume." Slack's eyes narrowed. "We do. We've been told you visited her cottage yesterday." Penry's brows lifted. "Visited? I think not." Dolly's voice cut in. "I saw you with my own eyes." The undertaker's expression remained calm. "Then your eyes deceive you, Lady Bantry. I was not in Street Mary Mead at all." "I was in Much Benham." Slack asked. "Can you prove that?" Penry slid open a drawer. "Receipts. Papers." He handed one over. "Consultation with the Monument Works. Henderson Memorial. Yesterday morning. Signed and stamped." Slack studied it. The time matched. Dolly frowned deeply. "I know what I saw." Penry folded his hands. "Then perhaps someone wished to be seen as me." "It happens, Inspector." A black coat, a tall hat, easy enough to copy. Slack's pencil scratched in his notebook. "You're saying an impersonation," Penry inclined his head. "Quite possibly. But I assure you no one from my staff was involved. All arrangements were ordered to pass through Dr. Haydock. I was told so directly." Dolly's lips tightened. "If someone pretended to be you, then they wanted us to believe the funeral was in hand." Slack looked at her, then back at Penry. "Did anyone borrow your coat? Your hat?" "Never," Penry said firmly. "They stay here. Always." Slack glanced toward the rack by the wall. The garments hung neatly, untouched. Penry added softly, "Miss Marple was a fine woman. I would not treat her passing with deception." Dolly turned away. Her fists clenched. She whispered. "Then someone went to great trouble." "Why?" Slack closed his notebook. "To make her death appear complete. No questions asked. No loose ends." They left the office in silence. Outside, Dolly stopped. "I am not mad, Inspector. I saw him," Slack answered quietly. "I believe you saw something, but not him." They walked back through the village. Children played. Doors shut. Curtains twitched. The whole place seemed to breathe secrets. Dolly's mind whirled. A false undertaker, a forged slip, a sailor's knot. Every thread pointed to a careful hand. Slack said suddenly, "Whoever it is knows our customs, knows how to look official, knows how to fool the village." Dolly whispered, "Then it must be someone close, someone we all accept without question." Slack stopped walking. His eyes scanned the cottages. Close indeed, which means danger is nearer than we think. A cry rang out from across the green. Urgent. Frantic. Fire. At Vane House. The fire at Vane House was small, quickly smothered, but the smell lingered in the air. Villagers gathered at the gate. Dolly Bantry pushed through, Inspector Slack beside her. In the kitchen, smoke curled from the range. Giles Vane waved his arms. "Nothing serious. Some ash caught. No damage done." Slack bent to the grate. Half-burned scraps clung stubbornly to the iron. He pulled one free with his pencil. "More receipts," he muttered. The ink blurred, but Dolly could make out words. "Insurance premium, heater repair." Her lips pressed tight. "They keep burning the very things Jane spoke of." Slack dropped the scrap into his notebook. He straightened. His eyes swept the kitchen. Something caught. A strip of ribbon. Black. It lay half-hidden under the table leg. He picked it up. The knot was sharp, flat, symmetrical. His thumb came away sticky. Tar. He held it up. "Lady Bantry, take a look." She peered closely. Tar smeared the knot. Not much. Enough to stain the cloth. Slack's voice was grim. "Same residue I found at the phone box. Whoever tied this used the same hands." Dolly whispered. "They tied Jane's ribbon. They ordered the wreath. And now they burn every trace of the heater." Giles Vane stepped forward, blustering. "You have no right to accuse. This is my house." Slack ignored him. His gaze swept higher. The windowsill bore faint, yellow dust. Pollen. Fine and fragile. The same dust from the lilies. He scraped a bit with his knife. "Left here. Carried in from the wreath. Someone stood at this very window after placing it." Dolly's eyes darted toward the back door. Miss Pike hovered there, pale. Her fingers twisted her handkerchief. "You've been cleaning," Dolly said. "Yet the stains remain. Tar, pollen, ash, all tied to Jane." Pike stammered. I only followed orders." Giles insisted. Giles snapped. "Be quiet." Slack's gaze sharpened. "Orders, Miss Pike? What sort of orders?" Her lips trembled. "Just to clear things, to burn papers, to tie the ribbon properly." He said it must look respectable. Slack's pencil scratched hard against his notebook. "Respectable or convincing?" Dolly's voice was soft, but cutting. "You thought Jane gone? You thought no one would notice? But we notice, Miss Pike. Every careless mark." Pike's hands shook. "I wanted no harm. I only helped." Slack closed his book with a snap. "Enough. Both of you stay in the village. No trips. No trains. No excuses." He turned to Dolly as they left the house. "Every clue links back. Ribbon, wreath, heater. But who pulls the strings? Vane? Pike? Or someone cleverer still?" Dolly's eyes narrowed. "And Jane waits behind her blinds, watching. If only she could see what we see." Slack's voice dropped. "She will. But first we need proof. Solid. Undeniable." They stepped into the lane. The Gazette boy ran past, waving fresh sheets. A correction notice fluttered loose, falling at Dolly's feet. She stooped and read. "Death of Miss Marple error amended by Dr. Haydock." Her face drained. Haydock's name, but Jane swore he was in on the plan. Slack snatched the slip. Then, someone forged the doctor's hand, and they want us all fooled. Inspector Slack led the way down the lane. Dolly Bantry kept pace beside him. The Gazette. Slip crumpled in her hand. "Forged," she muttered. They dared to use Haydock's name. Who would be so bold? Slack's face was grim. Whoever made the call for that wreath. Same hand, same plan. They reached the lonely phone box near Vane House. Paint flaked from its sides. The glass smudged. The door creaked as Slack pushed it open. He stepped inside. His torch beam swept the shelf under the receiver. He crouched. Dust lay thick across the wood, but not everywhere. He touched a smear. White powder clung to his finger. He sniffed. Lily pollen, same as the wreath. Dolly leaned in. And there, that dark mark. A faint, greasy streak stained the corner. Slack rubbed it. His finger came away black. Tar, he said. The same as on the ribbon knot. No question. He scanned lower. The floor bore faint scratches. Not old, not worn. Fresh. Boots stood here long, waiting, nervous. Dolly folded her arms. So it was here the order was placed, from this very box, not by accident, by design. Slack nodded. And not just anyone, someone who works with tar, or soot, or both. The lane was silent. Then footsteps crunched behind them. Giles Vane appeared, hat low, coat swinging. He stopped when he saw them inside the box. Well now, he said too quickly. What business drags you to this corner? Slack's voice was flat. Routine. Checking village phones. And you, Mr. Vane? What brings you here? Giles forced a smile. Taking the air. Clearing my head. All this gossip weighs heavy. Dolly's eyes narrowed. Strange place to clear one's head, especially when your house still smells of smoke. Giles bristled. My affairs are my own, Lady Bantry. Slack stepped out of the box. He stood inches from Giles. Your aunt's heater, your companion's soot, your own nerves. It adds up poorly. Giles raised his hands. You suspect me? For what? For misfortune? For accident? You think I rang for flowers? Ridiculous. Slack's voice stayed calm. Ridiculous or not, you'll explain yourself at the station tonight. Giles flushed red. You have nothing. Nothing but gossip. He turned sharply and strode off, but his gait was uneven. One boot scuffed louder than the other. Dolly whispered, Did you see? He limps when pressed. Nervous as a schoolboy. Slack's jaw set. He's hiding something. The question is what? And who helps him? They left the box. The wind rustled across the hedges. The village seemed to hold its breath. Back at the green, the Gazette boy still shouted, Correction! Correction in today's sheet. Slack stopped him. Who gave you this? The boy shrugged. Slip was dropped at the office, folded neat. No signature. Slack tucked it into his coat. Another forgery. Another mask. Dolly's eyes were sharp. If Giles placed the wreath, why spell Jane's name wrong? Slack's reply was cold. Because, Lady Bantry, maybe it wasn't Giles. He turned toward the cottage. And the one who did knows Jane isn't dead. Inspector Slack returned to Vane House. Dolly Bantry went with him. The door was ajar. Inside, the air reeked of smoke. Miss Pike hovered in the kitchen, her face pale, her hands restless. Slack's eyes fell on the table. The heater lay in pieces. Pipes, screws, collars, bolts, neatly spread as if examined. He stepped closer. Soap clung to the venting pipe. Bits of grey wool jammed against the collar. He said quietly, exactly as Miss Marple described. Dolly leaned over. So she was right. It wasn't accident. Someone blocked it deliberately. Pike whispered, You can't prove that. Slack's head turned sharply. Her lips trembled, her nails black with soot. You handled this, he said. Why? She shook her head. Giles told me. He said dismantle it, burn what's left. He didn't want it used again. Dolly's tone was sharp. Not used again or not discovered. Pike flinched. I only followed instructions. Slack bent to the hearth. Half-burned scraps still glowed. He lifted one with his knife. An insurance slip. The top line survived. Policy number 3421, Mrs. A. Vane. He pocketed it, his voice low. So Giles had motive. Insurance. Large policy. Plenty to gain. Pike whispered again. You don't understand. He loved her. He would never. The back door creaked. Giles stepped in, face flushed. He froze at the sight of Slack holding the scrap. Slack's gaze pinned him. "Care to explain this, Mr. Vane?" Giles forced a smile. "Old papers. Not important." Slack held up the pipe with soap residue. "And this?" "Soap to block the vent. That's not old. That's murder." Giles bristled. "You overstep, Inspector." Dolly cut in. "No, you tremble. You cannot hide it." Slack's tone hardened. "Your aunt died of carbon fumes. Now her heater proves sabotage. You dismantled it. You burned her papers. Why?" Giles's voice rose. "Because she left debts. Because everything was falling apart. I only wished to clear the house." Pike tugged at his sleeve. "Stop, Giles." But he shook her off. "You think me guilty? You'll regret this." Slack stepped forward. "You'll answer at the station. Until then, you stay under watch." Giles' fists clenched. He seemed ready to strike. But Pike grabbed his arm. "Don't, please." Slack's men entered from the yard. 2 constables. They stood ready. Slack gave a nod. "Take him." Giles struggled once, then sagged. The constables led him away. The kitchen fell silent. The smell of smoke still heavy. The heater's remains glinted under the lamp. Dolly whispered, "If Giles is guilty, why all the clumsy signs? The wreath, the ribbon, the forged slip. Too many mistakes." Slack frowned. "Or too many layers. Perhaps someone meant us to see." Giles, to stop looking deeper. Dolly's eyes widened. "You mean someone else set the trap?" Slack didn't answer. He stared at the vent pipe in his hand. He muttered, "Then the real killer still walks free." Night fell heavy over Street Mary Mead. Shutters closed, lamps dimmed. But at Miss Marple's cottage, the blinds stayed drawn. Inside, Jane sat still. Her knitting rested in her lap, her ears strained. The village believed her gone. Only Haydock knew the truth, and Dolly, perhaps, suspected. But someone else suspected too. The gate creaked. Footsteps crunched on the gravel path, slow, measured, purposeful. Jane's breath held. The knock came, not gentle, not neighborly. 3 dull thuds. She did not move. The handle turned. The door creaked open. A shadow slid inside. Tall, thin, careful. The intruder carried no lantern. Jane shrank back in her chair. She kept silent, watching. The figure crossed to her writing desk. A key jingled softly. He opened the drawer. Papers rustled. He pulled out an envelope. Across the flap, Jane's hand had written in neat script, "Heater receipts." The intruder slipped it into his coat. He turned to leave, but something fell from his pocket. A stub of black ribbon. It landed near the hearth. Jane's eyes fixed on it. She waited. The door closed again. The footsteps retreated. Silence returned. Her heart beat fast. She rose slowly, picked up the ribbon. Her fingers traced the knot. Again a reef knot. Precise, certain. She whispered, "The same hand." Again and again. She opened her sewing box. Inside lay the true heater receipts. She smiled faintly. The envelope the intruder stole contained nothing but a pressed fern, and a note. She had written it herself. 2 words only. "Who tied?" She placed the box back. Sat again in her chair. Her needles clicked once more. Across the green, Dolly Bantry sat restless in her own room. She thought of shadows, of blinds, of knitting laid. "Wrong," she whispered to herself. "Jane, what are you playing at?" At the station, Slack paced his office. A constable entered. "Sir, report from the watchman. Movement at Marple's cottage." Slack stopped cold. "Movement? At a dead woman's house?" The constable nodded. Door opened, then closed. Shadow came and went. "He swears it." Slack grabbed his hat. "Keep it quiet. No alarm. We move at dawn." Back in the cottage, Jane sat in silence. Her eyes sharp. Her mind sharper still. She whispered into the empty room, "They think me blind. They think me buried. But tomorrow they'll make their fatal slip." The clock ticked on. Outside, the lane was still, but a faint scuff echoed near the hedge. Another presence. Not the one who had entered. Someone watching the watcher. Jane's hand froze on her needles. Her heart clenched. How many eyes hunted in the dark tonight? A whisper drifted through the keyhole. Low. Male. You should have stayed dead. Mourning broke uneasy. The village stirred, but whispers spread faster than the milk cart. Inspector Slack stood outside Vane House. 2 constables waited at his side. Dolly Bantry joined him, eyes sharp with worry. Slack spoke low. We have enough to hold him. Papers burned, heater dismantled, insurance slip half-scorched. He won't talk otherwise. They knocked. Giles Vane opened the door, pale from a sleepless night. He forced a smile. Inspector, Lady Bantry. Back again so soon? Slack stepped forward. We're taking you in, Mr. Vane. Breaking and entering. Theft of documents from Miss Marple's cottage. Giles froze. His eyes darted. That's absurd. I haven't set foot near her cottage. Slack's voice was flat. Then how do you explain this? He held up the envelope recovered in the night. The fern inside still pressed neat. The note still crisp. Who tied? Giles's face drained of colour. His lips moved, but no words came. Dolly's gaze never left him. You thought her dead. You thought you could take what you wanted. Giles stammered. I don't know what this is. Someone planted it. You can't prove otherwise. Slack gave a curt nod. Proof enough for now. Constables. The men stepped forward. One seized Giles's arm. The other snapped cold steel around his wrists. The click of handcuffs echoed through the hall. Giles struggled once, then sagged. This is madness. You'll regret it, Inspector. I only wanted peace. I only wanted to settle accounts. Slack's reply was harsh. Settle accounts with lies and fire? Pike appeared in the doorway, her face white. Giles, she cried. They can't take you. Not like this. He turned to her, desperate. Tell them, Beatrice. Tell them I never left the house. But Pike's eyes wavered. Her hands trembled. I don't know what to say. Slack's voice cut through. You said yesterday he ordered you to burn papers. You said he told you to dismantle the heater. Pike's lips parted, then closed. Her silence sealed his fate. The constables led Giles out. Villagers gathered at the gate. Whispers rippled through the crowd. Arrested! Giles in irons. Inspector's got him now. Dolly watched with grim eyes. She murmured. It feels too neat. Too quick. Slack overheard. You think he's not guilty? I think he's guilty of something, she said softly. But not everything. Slack frowned. Then who else? She shook her head. Jane would know. She would see what we miss. At the station, Giles sat slumped in the cell, his eyes hollow. He muttered again and again, I only wanted peace. Only peace. But peace was far from Street Mary Mead. Everywhere, unease thickened. At the church, preparations stirred for the memorial service. A black cloth draped over 2 front pews, one for Miss Marple, one for Mrs. Vane. 2 absences, 2 mysteries. And now 1 man in chains. Dolly stood at the churchyard gate that evening. The bell tolled, heavy and slow. The villagers gathered. She glanced around. 2 faces were missing. Beatrice Pike. And Mr. Penry, the undertaker. Her stomach knotted. Dolly whispered, They're gone. And that means something's about to happen. The church filled slowly. Mourners drifted in, coats dark, voices hushed. 2 wreaths rested near the altar. One bore lilies for Miss Marple, the other faded roses for Mrs. Vane. The bell tolled again, each strike heavy, deliberate. Dolly Bantry slid into a pew near the front. Her eyes scanned the rows, faces she knew all her life. Neighbours, friends, curious onlookers, but 2 faces missing. Beatrice Pike, Mr. Penry, the undertaker. She whispered under her breath, They should be here. They must be here. Inspector Slack entered next. He gave her a sharp nod. He, too, noticed the absences. He whispered, Giles locked up. Yet Pike vanishes. Penry, too, doesn't sit right. Dolly's eyes fixed on the lilies. The guilty always avoid mourning. They fear the silence. The service began. Reverend Clement spoke solemnly. Today we honor 2 souls departed, lives cut short. May truth bring comfort where answers fail. Murmurs rippled. Truth. Answers. But no one believed comfort would come easily. Slack's gaze shifted constantly. Each cough, each shuffle drew his suspicion. He leaned toward Dolly. This service is cover. Mark my words. While we sit here, someone plots. She nodded faintly. Her eyes darted to the doorway. Still no Pike. Still no Penry. She whispered, "Where are they, Inspector? What are they doing now?" Slack scribbled in his notebook. 2 absences. 2 lies waiting. When they reappear, it will be with new stories. The choir sang low. The hymn drifted through the stone arches, but Dolly barely heard. Her mind replayed every detail. The soot on Pike's hands, the ribbon tied too neat, the phone box with tar and pollen, the forged slip with Haydock's name. Threads tangled together, but one thing clear. Jane had seen it first. Jane had staged her own death to catch it. Dolly whispered, "Come back, Jane. Show yourself, before it's too late." Slack's pencil paused. He muttered, "She will. She always does." The service ended. Villagers filed out. Murmurs rose again, louder now. Dolly and Slack lingered. Still no Pike. Still no undertaker. Dolly's voice was low. They stayed away on purpose, afraid of what eyes would see in church, afraid of a slip in prayer. Slack closed his notebook. Then we'll find them elsewhere. Vane house, the undertaker's rooms, wherever they hide. They stepped outside. The sky had darkened. A chill spread through the yard. Villagers clustered in groups. Gossip buzzing. Suspicion brewing. Dolly drew close to Slack, her voice firm. "You must look tonight. Not tomorrow. Tonight." Slack nodded once. "I agree. We'll search. Quietly." Just then, a boy ran up breathless, cap askew, eyes wide. "Inspector, Lady Bantry, I saw them. By the lane near the Vane orchard. Both of them. Talking fast. Arguing." Slack's eyes flashed. At last. Together. Dolly gripped his arm. "Then this is it. The truth waits there." The boy swallowed hard. But they weren't alone. Someone else stood in the shadows with them. The orchard lay dark. Wind hissed faintly through bare branches. 3 figures stood near the hedgerow. Dolly Bantry crouched low with Inspector Slack. The boy who guided them pointed. "There. Look." Beatrice Pike shifted nervously. Her voice trembled. "We shouldn't be here. It isn't safe." Mr. Penry's tone was flat. "Safe or not, we must speak. The inspector already suspects. And Lady Bantry watches too much." Slack's eyes narrowed. "Good lad," he whispered to the boy. "Go back now. Leave the rest to us." The boy ran off. Dolly leaned closer. "Listen. They're frightened. But of whom?" In the orchard, Pike wrung her hands. "Giles is locked away. They'll blame him for everything. Why not let it rest?" Penry shook his head. "Because she isn't dead. Don't you see? Someone saw her shadow last night. She watches still." Pike gasped. "Impossible." Penry's reply was sharp. "Then who left that note in the cottage? Who tied?" "Only she would write that. Only she would know the knot." Dolly's heart leapt. She whispered, "They know. They know Jane lives." Slack held up a hand for silence. They listened closer. Pike's voice cracked. "What if she truly is alive? Then she knows everything. About the heater. About the papers. About us." Penry's voice dropped low. "Then we silence her again. Properly this time. No mistakes. No ribbons. No slips." Dolly's hand shot to Slack's sleeve. Her whisper urgent. "Did you hear? He means to kill her. Tonight." Slack's face hardened. "We move soon." "Not yet. Let them reveal all." In the orchard, a third voice spoke suddenly. Deeper. Steadier. "You won't have to. I already set things in motion." Dolly stiffened. "That's not Giles." "Who is it?" The shadow stepped forward. The moon slipped between clouds. A face half lit. Familiar. Trusted. Dr. Haydock. Pike gasped aloud. You. But you said. He cut her off. I said nothing. I let you believe. And while the village mourned, I took care of the real evidence. Penry hissed. You forged the correction slip. Haydock nodded once. And more. Without me, you would already hang. Remember that. Slack's hand gripped his revolver. His whisper burned. The doctor. All along. Dolly's heart pounded. She whispered. Jane trusted him. She swore he was with her. In the orchard, Haydock's eyes flicked left, then right. We'll meet again tomorrow. By then, Miss Marple will be forgotten for good. Do your part. Leave the rest to me. He turned sharply and strode away. Pike covered her face with trembling hands. Penry cursed under his breath. Slack pulled Dolly back into the hedgerow. His voice was taut. Now we know, but proof is thin. We can't move yet. Dolly's voice shook. If we wait, Jane may not live till morning. The orchard fell quiet. Only the wind moved through the branches. The conspirators scattered into the night. Slack and Dolly slipped back toward the lane. Their steps quick, their minds racing. Behind them, unseen, another figure lingered in the shadows, watching both sides. Morning smoke drifted from Vane house. Too much for a kitchen fire, too heavy. Dolly Bantry smelled it first. She tugged Slack's arm. They're burning again. Slack strode through the gate. He pushed the kitchen door wide. Heat struck them at once. The range roared. Flames high, greedy. Scraps curled into ash as they watched. Miss Pike crouched by the hearth, her face streaked with soot. She cried out when she saw them. Stop this, Slack barked. He seized the poker and dragged the burning heap into the open. Ash scattered across the floor. Among the fragments, a corner of paper survived. Dolly stooped quickly. She read the faint line. Premium due. Policy number 3421. Another insurance slip. Another piece Giles claimed never existed. Slack muttered. They try to erase every trace, but fire never eats everything. He raked deeper. More scraps. Half-charred signatures. One carried Haydock's name. Another, Giles's initials. Pike's hands shook. I had no choice. He told me to. He said everything must go. Slack